I'm solo, I'm riding solo, I'm riding solo, I'm riding solo, solo. Yeah, I'm feeling good tonight. Finally doing me. Hey, what's up, everybody? Thought I'd give you a little musical intro. Me riding solo today, without Matt Bell, without Insider Fantasy, Chris K. It's just me, just Logie, riding solo. So a little Jason Derulo to start everything off. Hopefully that boosts his iTunes sales. Probably not. But anyway, got a long slate of baseball to get to. Hopefully everybody can view this, and I did this all right. Hopefully. We got a long slate of games to get to. It's going to be a little bit different than normal, just being me. There's not going to be any banter back and forth. So I'm gonna break up the kind of the monotony of going game by game, and I'm gonna give you guys some different stuff. I'm gonna show you guys some screen share stuff. We're gonna do some. We're gonna try to win $1 million in the FanX Home Run Derby, and hopefully just have a little bit of fun here today, and still get through all the stuff that can help you guys, rock and roll those lineups and put together some money. Just some brief notes on yesterday. What a weird day. What a really, really strange day in daily fantasy sports. It was a difficult day for pitchers as it was, but Clayton Kershaw was on the board, so everything seemed to be a bit easier when a guy like that is there for the taking. However, Clayton Kershaw had his second shortest start of his career, an inning and 2/3, 3 Ks, 7 earned runs, and absolutely a shellacking by the Arizona Diamondbacks. If you guys watched that game, Kershaw's first inning was super easy. He came out in the second and just started getting hit. And, guys were hitting balls in the gap, and it's so spacious there that everything ended up being a triple, and by the end of it, he didn't even get out of the second inning, and really hurt a lot of people's scores should you have decided to pay up for him. If you didn't, congratulations on fading the best pitcher in baseball. That's a really difficult decision, especially on a short slate. If you did use him, my condolences. I was one of those people as well. And hopefully you guys got something righted out with your offense or your other pitcher, depending on the site, and you had a good night anyway. But if you didn't, then let's turn it around today. It's a new day. It's a game of forget, just like baseball. You can go 0 for 4 one day and then go 4 for 4 with a couple homers the next. Let's try to turn it into that. Just some brief notes on today. There are no weather concerns. I'm looking out my window in Pittsburgh. I know there's no game here today, but it's really, really nice outside, and feels really nice here in the sun right now. No weather concerns across the nation. Looks like everywhere it's going to be sunny, warmer, not really any clouds anywhere. Should be a beautiful day for baseball, which is awesome to watch, awesome to be a part of if you guys are at the games, and awesome for us in terms of not having to worry about putting guys out there in weather games. So there's that. Another early note is the Pirates and Yankees are playing a doubleheader today at Yankee Stadium. There's a 105 game and a 405 game. Be aware of whatever site you happen to be playing on. Be aware that you know which game is being included. The first game is Hiroki Kuroda and Charlie Morton, and I believe the second game is Garrett Cole and Vidal Nuno. So while both games present some sort of value in terms of offensive or pitcher production, you definitely need to be able to make sure we know which guys we can use. So check out the site that you're playing on, go to their game slate, see which guys are available there, and make sure you know, because it does change things. A guy like Andrew McCutchen a lot in the second game against Nuno, not so much in the first game against Kuroda. So things definitely changed there, and it will mess with the lineup a little bit. I have the lineup pulled up here for the first game. It'll mess a little bit with the catchers in lineups today. Tony Sanchez starting that first game, catching Charlie Morton, but I'm not so sure that he will be catching the second one of a doubleheader. So just be aware. One other thing, I guess, before I get to everything else, is just to mention that Sundays are a great day for the managers to not start their catchers. It's a day game after a night game for the most part, and a lot of times we see the best guys, the number one catchers there, take a back seat on days like this.
So that's something you want to definitely make sure you're keeping your eye on and you're looking into before you even set your lineups. I know you can kind of get away with it on site like DraftKings where you can late swap, but you don't want to put a guy into your lineup that's in a 4 o'clock game or the Sunday Night Baseball, and we don't get the lineups until everything else locks, and you find out that that guy isn't even catching today. So definitely be aware before you spend any salary on a catcher that you've got the guy that's actually going to start there. I think that's all my notes for that right now. Like I said, it's going to be a little bit different today just because it is just me and I don't have Chris K to talk about the Tigers too or Matt Bell to pick on about the St. Louis Cardinals. So just a little bit different today. So a couple other notes. I guess I just wrote down a bunch of notes to get through just because I didn't want to miss them and have nobody here to remind me. So I actually wrote them down for you guys. There's a couple starter changes for guys on the mounds today. Anibal Sanchez is coming off the DL to pitch in Sunday Night Baseball, so that's something to keep your eye on. High K guy, I'm not sure if he's available in player pools or not yet. Don Roach will be pitching for Andrew Kashner, who goes to the DL today in Colorado, which makes things a little bit better offensively for that Colorado team. Roach is definitely not anywhere near the pitcher that Andrew Kashner is, so that's something to keep your eye on. Outside of that, though, I think that's all the notes I have. So let's get into the games. Hopefully, I'm good here. Can everybody see this? I hope I haven't been broadcasting to myself for the last almost 10 minutes here. So if somebody in the chat there could just give me a heads up that I'm going, I will continue on and get to the games. Let me pull up my list. All right, the first game I have here is the Oakland A's and the Cleveland Indians at Progressive Field. In this series, we've seen some different things happen. We saw the A's explode against Zach McAllister. We saw last night Scott Kazmir get tossed by Jerry Lane in what was pretty awful tossing of an umpire, kind of just showing up the game. Okay, give me just a minute here. Apparently nobody can see. No. Give me a minute here, guys. Bear with me. Sorry about this. Found the mistake. Okay, guys. Not that you're going to be able to hear me. You're going to be behind anyway. Okay, give me just a minute here. This is going to be an awkward section of when you guys actually catch up to this. Just another minute. Sorry about this. If I had another guy here, I could have them ramble on a little bit. Should be able to refresh that and score up to live here. Just another minute to make sure everybody gets caught up. We good? Hopefully I have Chris K in the chat. Tell me, can you see me waving? Okay, anyway, whatever. I'm going to move on. You guys will eventually get to this awkward section of me kind of sitting around for a couple minutes to make sure that you guys could see everything. But I'm going to get back to the action. I'm talking a little bit about this Oakland A's game and the Cleveland Indians. Saw some weird things happen in this series, and today it's Jesse Chavez and Justin Masterson. Kind of an odd matchup for pitchers, at least in my opinion. Masterson's a guy that I really like to target against really heavily right-handed lineups, especially when he's at a pitcher's park, and especially when there aren't other good options on the board. Well, today it's a little bit different. Masterson, he's a guy that I've talked about a lot about how much his ball moves and how difficult it is for him to keep it in the zone. And the Oakland Athletics are a team that play the platoons very, very heavily. So like today, for instance, they've got John Jaso back there in the lineup. And one thing to note with John Jaso is that he's actually moved down from the top of the order to the 6th hole, which makes me not like his value nearly as much as I did when he was kind of hitting in that 1-2 hole. But I know it's a guy that people have really been targeting. They've been targeting with their catcher position. Maybe not so much exposure to him today. But at the top of that lineup, they have Coco Crisp and Jed Lowry, both guys who can swing it from the left side. Makes me like Justin Masterson just a little bit less than I would have against another team. This A's team is a team that just happens to always put it together regardless of the guys that they have in the lineup. So anyway, on the other side of things, Jesse Chavez, kind of a journeyman guy, an older, like 30-year-old guy who's bounced around a little bit, who strung together a pretty good season this year. He had a good start out against the White Sox last time at home, this time on the road against the Indians, who did their best to slide in a lot of left-handed bats against him today. Looks like they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys who can swing it from the left side against him today. Kind of trying to do that same thing back to the Oakland Athletics and take care of that platoon advantage. So neither of these pitchers are pitchers that I'm typically on in this game, but I think there are some maybe plug-and-play value guys that you could think about. Brantley's back in that lineup. He's been exceptional this year. David Murphy's hitting 5. He's been pretty good for a while now. You see Nick Swisher and Carlos Santana both get bumped down to 6 and 7. That's kind of a wait-and-see thing for me. I'd like to see kind of what they're going to do. I don't like them nearly as much down there in that part of the order. And then you have guys like Jose Ramirez and Lonnie Chisenhall hitting 8 and 9. That might be guys that you can fill in that middle infield positional eligibility and find some value. Anyway, though, that game's got not much for me. So I'm going to move on to the Pirates-Yankees game, a game yesterday that I heavily targeted because Yankee Stadium is such a bandbox. Same thing goes today. Charlie Morton and Hiroki Kuroda. Morton's a guy that's typically very, very good against right-handed hitters, but the Yankees really did a good job of getting a lot of left-handed guys in their lineup today. Gardner's leading off. He had a home run yesterday. Ellsbury's back from a stomach virus. Teixeira homered yesterday. McCann homered yesterday. Soriano homered yesterday. All those guys are in the lineup, not to mention guys like Kelly Johnson, Solarte, Zuilo, Almonte, who had a home run yesterday. Lots of home run potential from that Yankees lineup, and this is a game that I think you could see a lot of balls fly out of the park. Morton's a ground ball guy, but should he not be on today, and he leaves himself in position to get hit pretty hard, it's not the type of park that you want to be in to get hit hard and to be giving up fly balls. So hopefully, if you aren't targeting Yankees, you're hoping that Charlie Morton is on his A game. On the other side, Hiroki Kuroda is a guy that, I guess is doing a very, very good job of mentoring Masahiro Tanaka, a guy that is similar to Tanaka in his exceptional splitter, and is a guy that really has pitched pretty underratedly in the Yankees system here for a while. He doesn't get, kind of the glory and the fame that guys like CC Sabathia and some of those other pitchers get, but he's very, very sneaky good, and he's actually not a pitcher that I'm really targeting because of the stadium and other pitchers being on the board today, but he could be a sneaky guy to use on maybe a 2-pitcher site where his price isn't too high. The Pirates only got 4 left-handed guys in there against him, and of those left-handed guys, one is Travis Snyder, the other is Ike Davis, and Pedro Alvarez, who has the propensity to strike out like a bajillion times or also hit a bajillion home runs. So that's something that we can keep our eye on. I did want to mention that catcher spot. That's such a difficult spot to fill. McCann's back in there hitting 5, and he looked really ugly in his first couple at bats yesterday, but ended up hitting a home run in the bottom of the 8th that really changed his day a lot. And I know he was pretty heavily owned in a short slate yesterday in the afternoon games. I think he's another guy that you'll probably see in a lot of lineups today. Although there are some other catchers with some pretty good platoon advantages today. The next game is a game that I'm actually going to be probably targeting from the pitcher side. Although Citizens Bank Park is a hitter's park, Tony Cingrani and Cliff Lee are facing off, and we got to see what Cole Hamels did to this Reds lineup last night. And the Reds were, man, they were going down left and right. Hamels was back on his game. He came out kind of early in that game, I think around like 90 pitches, following 130-some pitch start. But he's K'd 10 in a row now in 2 straight games. So something to keep your eye on with Cole Hamels. But anyway, Cliff Lee is a guy that he's not going to present you with the same strikeout potential that Hamels did yesterday. I think his K per 9 is around 8.5, but his ground ball rate's back up to around 50%, which is excellent. And he's going to throw a lot of strikes. This is a guy that actually gets hurt by putting too many balls in the zone sometimes. So while it's one of the most frustrating things to be watching this game and to see Cliff Lee maybe get ahead of a hitter 0-2 and then throw a ball way too close 0-2, then he ends up giving up a hit, I'm sure you'll probably see something like that today. While that's a very, very frustrating thing, it's also really great to know that he's going to be in the zone. He's not going to be putting runners on base. And this Reds lineup, just isn't a very good lineup. They did load it with right-handed guys today, but there's no Joey Votto, there's no Jay Bruce. Brandon Phillips is on a decline. Mesoraco's back, which will really help the right-handed side of things, but there's just nobody in this lineup that really worries me a whole lot. And Cliff Lee's a veteran guy that I think comes out there and kind of figures out how to maneuver around this lineup and doesn't really have to pick and choose really too much about who he wants to pitch to because there's not really much of a threat at all in this game. So I really like Cliff Lee today. And on the other side of things, Tony Cingrani is a guy that has been burned before by the overuse of his fastball. So he's come into this year, tried to throw his slider a little bit more and try to work in some of those secondary pitches, to keep hitters off balance. But today the fastball might not be too bad against a lot of those left-handed bats in the Phillies. I'm not typically targeting Cingrani, especially not for cash games, but I think he is a GPP play because of his unlimited strikeout potential. This is a guy who can go out there and strike out a lot of hitters. And the Phillies throw out a lot of left-handed guys. It looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and Cliff Lee. 6 of those 9 hitters in that Phillies lineup today are left-handed. And actually Rollins is a switch hitter, so he'll be hitting from the right side. So 5 of them. But anyway, 5 left-handed guys that Cingrani will have the platoon advantage over, provide some definite chances for strikeouts, and could be a really, really sneaky GPP play. Since I kind of like both of these pitchers in one way or another, I'm not really on any of these hitters in this game. If you wanted to try to get cute and pick out a couple guys, Mesoraco has been excellent this year. John Mayberry Jr., a guy that's hitting 8 for the Phillies, is a guy that could show some pop. And Will Nieves, another catcher, getting the start there over Carlos Ruiz, is hitting in the 2-hole today against Cingrani. That might be a guy that you could really take advantage of with his price and his advantage today in that 2-hole. The next game, though, is the Nationals and the Mets. Jordan Zimmerman and Zach Wheeler. Yesterday, Gio Gonzalez was absolutely horrendous. One of the guys that we talk about all the time that is so scary to put in your lineup, regardless of who the opponent is. And yesterday being a day where we get to see the New York Mets, everybody kind of jumped on this Gio Gonzalez play, and rightfully so. I was on it as well, and I think it was the play that you had to have made in that early slate of games. But he just was absolutely terrible. And today the Mets, they're throwing out kind of their prototypical Mets lineup with not too many big names. You got David Wright, Murphy, who's been swinging the bat well, and Curtis Granderson hitting 2 through 4. But Eric Young Jr. at the top, he needs to get on base to be effective. And from Duda on down, Juan Lagares, Tejada, Centeno, and Zach Wheeler, that doesn't really frighten me a whole lot. So Jordan Zimmerman is definitely on my radar today. Definitely a guy that I think you need to have maybe some exposure to because he is a pretty good K guy. The Mets aren't really good at all, and he is pitching at home there at Nationals Park. Now, if you were to target some guys in this game offensively, there's really none to target. Yesterday with the Nationals against Bartolo Colon, I know a lot of guys were on Jason Worth and Ian Desmond. And today against Zach Wheeler, I'm not against using that, especially Desmond, who is he doesn't really have a drastic platoon advantage or split there. But a guy at the top of the order, Denard Span, who's been swinging it okay. Rendon's kind of cooled off and isn't as good against right-handed guys. But those are names. And Wilson Ramos is a regular catcher who's been back off the disabled list finally. And he's getting to swing it in the 4 spot, which is a really nice chance for him there today against Zach Wheeler. And I know his price has been down. He was around 3,600 on DraftKings. That's a really nice price for a guy who gets to hit 4, especially at a catcher position that's so difficult to fill day in and day out. And on a day like today, when you're going to see a lot of those backup catchers like Juan Centeno that nobody's even really heard of. So if you're looking to get like a regular catcher with the potential to actually do some damage today, I think Wilson Ramos is definitely an option. Moving on to the next game, and we're starting to hit the games that don't have lineups out yet. Well, at least this game. I only have one lineup here for this game. It's the Orioles and the Royals. It's supposed to be Ubaldo Jimenez and James Shields at Kauffman Stadium. We've seen some really nice pitching matchups out there in these last 2 days. Danny Duffy took a perfect game into the 7th and ended up giving up a seeing eye single up the middle from Adam Jones. And the day before, Chris Tillman threw a complete game shutout. Today, I actually kind of like both these guys. I know that's weird to say because Ubaldo Jimenez is a guy that is one of those Gio Gonzalez types where you don't really feel safe putting him in your lineup consistently. Well, Ubaldo in his last, let's see, I have it pulled up here. In his last, looks around 19 to 20 innings. He's only given up 1 earned run, and he's got 20 strikeouts there. He's dropped his ERA from like a 6.5 to a 4.02, which really isn't super terrible in the American League. And he gets kind of a favorable matchup today against the Royals, who aren't a team that really do a whole lot offensively. We have mentioned in the past that the Royals aren't a team that really strike out a whole lot, and they do have some good left-handed bats there to kind of maybe neutralize what Ubaldo can do. But they also don't hit for any power and really haven't been hitting a whole lot as it is. We got to see Chris Tillman shut these guys out 2 nights ago, and Ubaldo kind of has that same type stuff where he could go out and be absolutely electric. On the other side of things, James Shields is, obviously a guy that should be on your radar today. Big game Shields is a guy that, I don't roster maybe as not enough. He's got a 2.54 ERA this year. He's a really good potential for strikeouts. In his last 14 innings, he's only given up 1 earned run, has 12 Ks, getting a lot of ground balls, and has pitched really well for this Royals team. Baltimore's lineup has gotten a little bit better with the addition of Chris Davis off the disabled list, and Manny Machado's back now. But they did lose Matt Wieters, a guy who would be able to swing it from the left side against Shields. And, after you get by kind of that 4 or 5 spot, you run into the Steve Clevenger, J.J. Hardy, Jonathan Scope, and you kind of get that drop-off in lineup, and there's not much there. And especially, at Camden Yards, these guys are definitely all in play because it's such a hitter's park. But when you move to Kauffman Stadium, which is a lot bigger, a lot more space, and you're facing a guy like James Shields, I'm not as frightened to use James Shields. Now, I think he's more of a GPP play. He's not going to be a guy that I'm going to really target heavily in my cash game lineups just because there are some other guys that I will get to here in a bit that I like a little bit more outside of a guy like Cliff Lee. But I think James Shields definitely needs to be on your radar. Probably one of the top 5, top 6 pitchers on the slate today. And because I do like some of these guys in this pitching matchup, I'm not going to be on a whole lot of Royals. Should you not feel the same way about Ubaldo Jimenez and kind of his recent performance, Eric Hosmer's a guy that is starting to play pretty well this year. He hits a lot of line drives. The power potential isn't there, but it's a good option in that lineup. And Alex Gordon, who made an awesome play last night to kind of keep that perfect game alive for Danny Duffy, hits in that 5 hole. Still really hasn't gotten it going this year, but a pretty good cash game play from that. The next game is a really, really fun game for DFS purposes. It's Gas Can John Danks against Brad Peacock in Houston. Man, this game I think has a lot of potential for a lot of runs to be scored. I actually just saw on MLB TV that I've got pulled up here. Jose Abreu actually just got placed on the 15-day DL, which will really kill that White Sox lineup. He wasn't really a guy that I was super highly on today against Peacock anyway, and that White Sox lineup isn't out yet. But definitely a big blow to the White Sox. And if you were considering rostering Jose Abreu in what would have been a higher scoring game, definitely make sure you're not doing that now. Anyway, for this game, John Danks is absolutely horrendous. Just not a very good major league pitcher. He's a lefty that is facing all right-handed hitters today. The Astros put out a lineup with 3 switch hitters, and the rest of the guys are righties. So John Danks will not have a nice first trip or two through that order. The Astros aren't guys that we typically target a lot of anyway, but I really love Jose Altuve today in the leadoff spot at a second base position that's really tough to fill. Altuve is just he's really super solid. This is a guy who's going to hit around 300. He doesn't strike out a whole lot. He steals bases, he hits doubles, and he's going to be kind of the spark plug type guy at the top of that order for an order that should score runs today against John Danks. In the 2-hole, George Springer, the highly touted prospect, he's back up. He scorched the ball to right center yesterday, had a really good day. Dexter Fowler hit a home run in the 3-hole. Then you get a day off for Jason Castro against the lefty. You get Matt Dominguez, Chris Carter, Jesus Guzman, LJ Hose, Carlos Corporan, Jonathan Villar, all guys that can swing from the right side. Everybody in play against John Danks. There's lots of value to be had for the Houston Astros. I really like a guy like Chris Carter for a GPP. He absolutely hit a moonshot foul yesterday, and I know that doesn't count for anything, but this is a guy that has kind of unlimited power potential, a guy that's bounced around with a couple organizations, and gets a pretty good chance there today against John Danks. On the other side of things, the White Sox lineup is not yet to be released. I know I just mentioned that Jose Abreu is gone, but Brad Peacock is a guy that also isn't going to frighten me. And the White Sox lineup is a lineup that's been pretty good offensively this year. A guy like Connor Gillespie is back. Alejandro Diaz is another left-handed guy. I really like to see the lineup before I give you too much analysis on this, but Adam Dunn is in that lineup. He's been playing pretty decently. That's a guy that has big-time power potential, really good GPP guy, and even in cash games on sites where you're not being deducted for him getting out or you're not being deducted more for him striking out, even in cash games, this is a guy that sees a lot of pitches, takes a lot of walks. If you're content with putting him in there and maybe not getting the home run but drawing a walk or two, that could be a guy that at a price that's super low is a guy that maybe you could fit in there in your roster there. And one guy I want to mention, I know I read his name off when I was doing the Astros lineup, is Carlos Corporan. He is hitting 8th today, but this is a guy that has some home run potential. And again, it's one of those catcher spots where today you're probably just going to punt your catcher because a lot of the starters aren't starting. It's the day game after the night game thing that I talked about. So this is a guy that you could fit in there. It stinks that he's hitting 8, but he should be in a good offensive spot today. Has some power potential. He's got the park advantage at Minute Maid Park. Kind of all those things add up for you to maybe use him today. So that's another guy there. And I think that's a game that you should definitely try to have some exposure to. I really like Altuve and Springer. I like Chris Carter. Astro stacks probably won't be too uncommon today in some GPPs. So definitely have some exposure to them. And if you're throwing a couple teams in the moonshot, take a chance with the Astros. I really like their potential today, and I think you see some balls fly out of there. I know this is a team that has a propensity to strike out a whole lot and could go out there and really have a goose egg. But it's John Danks, man. This is gas can Danks, as Greg would refer to him, a guy that you shouldn't be worried about. I'm going to continue to move on here, but should I get that White Sox lineup out here in the next 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, by the time the show ends up, I'll definitely go back through there and let you guys know, because there are some guys in that lineup that maybe provide some decent value today against Brad Peacock. The next game is the game where I think I'm going with my pitcher just about everywhere. Felix Hernandez, it's King Felix. Everybody knows he's one of the best pitchers in baseball, but he hasn't been super great in his last few. He had that start a couple starts ago where he didn't strike out anybody. And last start, if you purely look at his stat line last start, you'll be unimpressed because he gave up like 4 earned runs, and he kind of exited maybe a little bit early for Felix's standards. But really, he pitched a fantastic game. he got kind of gypped with a bad two-strike call that he didn't get. Ended up having to throw an extra pitch and gave up a bases-loaded double to Ryan Hannigan, of all people, and then got pulled, and one of the runners that he had left on base scored against him. So he really should have recorded a quality start. Kind of got screwed out of that there in his last start against the Rays at home. I like him again a lot today against the Twins. This isn't a lineup that really does a whole lot for me. I like them a lot more against left-handed guys with Dozier and Plouffe. But you're gonna have to pay up for Felix. But I do want to mention, that he did kind of find that strikeout zone again last time. It's scary to roster a guy that's that expensive and not have him strike out people, because that's what you need in order to put yourself in a good position to cash in daily fantasy. So when you're paying up for a guy like Felix Hernandez, you're expecting the strikeouts, and the Twins are kind of like a middle of the pack strikeout team. But this is an arm that they don't see too often. Felix Hernandez is a guy that can shut down any lineup, at any given time. So with all the other options on the board today, there are other guys I like, but Felix Hernandez is probably my top play by far. I think he's my cash game play just about everywhere, depending on the price. And I think you basically, you're hurting yourself if you don't have some exposure to Felix Hernandez. I guess that's what I'm getting at. If you kind of look at that bottom third, maybe even the bottom half of that Twins lineup, those guys, Felix Hernandez should have no trouble pitching his way through. On the other side of things, though, it is Ricky Nolasco pitching. This is a guy that we try to target a lot in daily fantasy sports, at least myself. Not a very good pitcher. It's not like the Mariners have much offensively, but all their guys are typically left-handed, and Nolasco is like the one guy in this Twins rotation that doesn't have the reverse splits. Correa, Phil Hughes, I'm blanking on some of those other guys, Mike Pelfrey, those guys all have the reverse splits, at least thus far this season, where right-handed guys are kind of mashing them. Nolasco's the other way around. You got James Jones, who provides a ton of value leading off. Saunders is a guy that I like a lot, hitting in the two-hole. And then obviously Robinson Cano. And as you kind of get down there, you got the Justin Smoke, Kyle Seager type guys that you could roster. I feel like some of those guys are maybe more GPP plays. I don't feel safe really putting those guys in my cash game lineups. But there's a lot of potential in this game against Ricky Nolasco. But I wouldn't be touching any Twins hitters. And, Mariner stacks are GPP only. Don't roster like more than maybe one or two of these guys in a cash game. But there are potentials to have run score, especially against a guy like Ricky Nolasco, who shouldn't frighten anybody in the least bit. But I'm going to move on to this next game that has a game of note that I forgot to mention. Jaime Garcia is back for the Cardinals. He will be on a strict pitch count. I believe it's somewhere in the ballpark of 85 to 95 pitches. So not a guy that I think you're going to want to roster today. And on the other side of things, it's Gavin Floyd, who's actually pitched pretty well in his return from the disabled list. He's kind of one of those journeyman guys who's been bounced around the league, started with the Phillies, has been kind of all over the place. Not a guy that I really, I'm not on either of these pitchers, but again, this isn't one of those games where I'm going to be all over hitters either. One of the guys that I would really like to have been Evan Gattis, who actually isn't in the lineup today, one of those day game after night game things. Gerald Laird gets the start. Chris Johnson is a guy hitting in the four-hole at third base who's going to give you pretty low price against Jaime Garcia and has the platoon advantage. And then obviously Justin Upton. I don't really like him too much in the two-hole, but he does get some protection with Freddie Freeman behind him. That's a guy that you should keep your eye on. And, I don't really ever touch Dan Uggla or anything like that. On the other side of things, it's difficult for me to roster Matt Adams until I see him really kind of turn some balls around. And Matt Carpenter really hasn't been too great this year leading off for that Cardinals lineup. But Colton Wong was a guy that I used yesterday. This is a guy that's been a pretty highly touted prospect who just hasn't really put it all together yet, but yesterday had a really good day, had a couple bunt hits, stole a base, scored a couple runs. He actually scored on a sac fly that was hit to the second baseman yesterday. So, kind of a spark plug guy there who gets the platoon advantage, hitting in front of guys like Matt Holliday and Alan Craig. Definitely a guy to keep your eye on, and his price it's not going to be too high. And the nice thing about Colton Wong is that he's going to provide you with that second base eligibility, and that's the spot that we have trouble filling. I like guys like Robinson Cano, and definitely the guys in Colorado are basically always in play, especially on a day like today where there's two kind of mediocre pitchers. But Colton Wong is a guy that I think you need to keep your eye on for cash game plays, especially today, where he gives you that low price that will allow you to kind of stretch up and get the Cargos, the Felix Hernandez's, Cliff Lee, stuff like that. So that's a guy you definitely need to keep your eye on today. But I'll move on to this next game, which is the Cubs and Brewers, a game that's kind of close to my heart. And just real quick, before I even go too far here, I'm going to screen share something for you guys. This is all you need today, guys, right here. Hopefully that screen share is working. Hopefully you can see that all it matters is that you take these two guys right here for the Cubbies. Starlin Castro and Anthony Rizzo have been absolutely fantastic this year. Castro has been back to his normal self. Rizzo I could go at length, and I'm not going to because I need to get to other games. But I could go on at length about Anthony Rizzo's maturation process at the plate this year, and how he's been so good against left-handed guys and right-handed guys, and is the cornerstone of this offense for the future until we get guys like Javier Baez and Chris Bryant up here. I like both those guys a whole lot today against Marco Estrada. I think Marco Estrada is a guy that you'll actually see be rostered today just because it is the Cubs. But the Cubs have been a team that has burned people when they are using when they are trying to be picked on. Guys have tried to pick on him with Wainwright. Guys have tried to pick on him with Tyler Lyons and things like that. And the Cubs have responded well. This is kind of one of those days for me where I'm not on Marco Estrada at all. I think you'll see him be used by people, especially kind of in the cash games where his price isn't too high, but it's just not a guy that I really feel comfortable rostering, and especially with the homerism of me being a Cubs fan, it just really doesn't feel good for me when I roster guys against the Cubs. So keep your eye on Anthony Rizzo, Starlin Castro. I kind of like Luis Valbuena in that 5 spot as a guy that maybe you could find some value with. But on the other side of things, I think there's some value with the Brewers lineup, and I don't feel comfortable saying that because I don't want to roster them. But against Travis Wood, the Brewers are a team that we really, really heavily target against left-handed guys, and that's what they're made for. Ricky Weeks has been really, really good, actually, recently. He gets to hit leadoff against Travis Wood. That's something to keep your eye on. Ryan Braun's a career .345 hitter against lefties, and, it's Ryan Braun. Outside of him being a cheater, there's really no reason not to roster him. Jonathan Lucroy is one of the many guys that actually is going to start today in that catcher spot, and he's a left-handed pitching killer. He gets a hit in the 4 spot behind Braun, Segura, and Weeks. Should be in a pretty good spot today. All those guys are kind of in play. Mark Reynolds, Chris Davis. Don't roster Jeff Bianchi. That's not smart. And definitely not Logan Schaefer. But any 1 through 6 in that lineup is definitely in play today against Wood. And the wind is actually blowing out at Wrigley. It's only about 12 miles an hour, which isn't like too much, but it's better than seeing 12 miles an hour in, at least in terms of the hitting. So hopefully the Cubs come away with a win there. Keep your eye on Starlin Castro and Anthony Rizzo, and also those right-handed Brewers bats. I better speed up a little bit here, though. I guess I'm moving on to the Blue Jays and Rangers game. It is R.A. Dickey and Nick Martinez. Nick Martinez is a guy out of Fordham University in New York. And R.A. Dickey, obviously the knuckleballer from the University of Tennessee. Don't ask me why I know either of those universities, but I do. This is kind of an odd game for me. It's really difficult to kind of pick whether or not you're choosing to target against the knuckleball or target the knuckleball for your playing. So R.A. Dickey's kind of always a GPP play. Should he be good today? If he's real good today and kind of neutralizes all those bats and has it really working for him and gets a ton of strikeouts, then you could really separate yourself from the field if you used him. On the other hand, it's difficult to target kind of which players are going to be good against R.A. Dickey. Should R.A. Dickey not be any good? And so guys I kind of like today, I'm trying to pull up this run line here. It's supposed to be a pretty high-scoring game. The Blue Jays 4.5 team total. The Rangers 4. Prince Fielder's kind of banged up. I think that kind of puts some pressure on Adrian Beltre, but I honestly think he responds pretty well to it. That's a guy that I keep my eye on at third base, which is actually kind of difficult today, which was weird when I started doing my research. Third base is a position that we like to kind of find power guys and guys in good spots, but Adrian Beltre, is one of the only names that kind of jumped out to me today. On the other side of things, though, with the Blue Jays against Nick Martinez, I really like the first four. Juan Francisco's a guy that's going to be in there with the platoon advantage today. Adam Lind is back. All those guys are in play. I especially like Francisco if his price is real cheap. I'd like to see this lineup come out. I'm not sure. It's not out yet. If Francisco's in that 5-hole, that'd be really, really great to roster him there. Guy has a ton of power. Just needs to be in the lineup, consistently, and needs to take advantage of the platoon splits there. And, you're not going to roster him against a left-handed guy, but Nick Martinez, a young righty, Francisco's a guy that's definitely I've got my eye on. It's difficult for me to be able to give you too many other guys in this game because the lineups aren't out. And, it being a day game after a night game, managers, mess things with their lineup. So just keep your eye on the hitters in this game when this lineup does come out, hopefully sometime before lineups lock at 1 o'clock. It should be out by then. When they do, keep your eye on some of the guys in this game. I think it's a good plug-and-play type game for some value, and even some full stacks might put you in the money today. The next game is a game where I'm not really sure where I'm going to go outside of that. I do like David Price. David Price was excellent in his last start, and this is a Cy Young type guy that has just had some really bad games this year, which will make his stats not show, kind of what this guy is capable of. But last start at Seattle, 12 Ks, complete game win, gave up 1 earned run, only 6 hits. This is a guy that is definitely on my radar, despite how the Angels will kind of load up that lineup with right-handed guys. C.J. Cron will be in there. Colin Cowgill, who's been real good, will probably be leading off. Kendrick's good against lefties. Trout, Pujols, all those guys, and Iannetta, they're going to really take advantage of putting all those right-handed hitters in that lineup. But I think David Price is too good to kind of really get hit real hard there today. Not my favorite play. Felix Fernandez definitely gets that tag today, but a guy that you need to keep your eye on, especially, and has tons of GPP upside. Because of what he can do with the strikeouts. And a guy that maybe won't be super heavily targeted because he's facing the Angels. So a lot to keep your eye on there. Because it is David Price, I'm not going to be on too many of those Angels, but I did list off all those right-handed guys. On the other end of this, it's Matt Shoemaker for the Angels against all the Rays. Man, the Rays are just a difficult team for me to kind of judge on what I want to do. Zobrist would be a guy that I would like to maybe have in this lineup, but he's on the DL right now. Longoria kind of really never does anything anytime I play him. Will Myers doesn't really ever seem to do anything anytime I play him. There's just not a whole lot here that I kind of want to try to take advantage on, despite it being Matt Shoemaker, a guy that's kind of one of these young guys who's actually been not too bad in his last couple weeks here. He's got a whip of .8, which is real good. Allowing less than a walk or a hit per inning. I think you might see that increase today. I think I have the run line pulled up here somewhere. Yeah, the Rays team total is 4. But then again, this is one of those later games. You got to be able to see the lineup before you actually put guys in place there. So I think a guy like James Loney might be a decent play for a cash game where you can find some value with him. But outside of that, there's not too much to really get into on there. The next game, I have another little screen share to do for you here. I talk about Christian Yelich a lot, and you guys know that I always am talking about Christian Yelich, and Christian Yelich is always in play for me against right-handed guys. And today it's Ryan Vogelsong, a guy out of the University of Kutztown, which is kind of closer to me here. Sorry, once again, weird that I know the college. But I still like Christian Yelich, and although I don't know Christian Yelich on a personal level, at least not yet, unfortunately, I do want to show you that Christian Yelich has a response to whether or not you should play him. So if you're worried about whether or not you should play Christian Yelich, which is a stupid question to have, honestly. But if you're worried and you really can't make up your mind and you'd like some other opinion on whether or not to play Christian Yelich, why don't you just ask him yourself? Take a look at this face and tell me whether or not Christian Yelich thinks you should play him today. That face right there pretty much screams to me, yo, dude, if you don't play me, you're going to lose. So I think it's stupid if you don't play Christian Yelich today. And I think that face right there will tell you that he feels the same way. This kid's he's going to be a stud. You know, he was only drafted in 2010, got to the big leagues pretty quickly, and he's been phenomenal. You know, if you look at the stat line, the 275 average isn't going to like scream out at you, but keep in mind, you know, this is a guy who's really trying to mature against left-handed pitchers. Who he's actually done a pretty good job of this year, and he's really good against righties, but he's still so young. He's only going to get better, and, you know, as the protection builds in this Marlins lineup, he's a guy that I always really like. I wanted to make sure I got that out there, though, because I'm always talking about Christian Yelich, and he's one of my favorite players in the major leagues, probably my favorite player in the major leagues outside of any of the Cubs. So definitely keep your eye on Christian Yelich at the top of that order. I also like a guy like maybe Derek Dietrich, who's been swinging it pretty well. He's probably hitting the 2 spot today at second base. Giancarlo Stanton homered last night. He's a guy that's always in play. There's really no reason to not mention him. And on the other side of things, Jacob Turner. Man, you know, this was a pretty highly touted prospect that has been bumped around a little bit. He was real good a couple starts ago. Not as good at Dodger Stadium as last start. He's got a 6.75 ERA. Hasn't really been striking out anybody, giving up a lot of contact. You know, it's tough for me to get on board using him, but at the same time, the Giants lineup, not knowing who's going to be in there, really frightens me. Especially when last night, I don't know if you guys watched this game at all, but last night, Angel Pagan got banged up making a diving catch. You know, that's a guy that I would maybe like at the top of that order who's not there. You know, Brandon Belt isn't there anymore. Pablo Sandoval, meh. And, you know, there's not too many other guys that I really feel comfortable using in this game. I like what Hunter Pence brings to the table. I like what Buster Posey brings to the table. We got to be able to see if those guys are in the lineup. Posey was not in the lineup last night, so I expect to see him there today. But if Hector Sanchez is catching, it's a switch-hitting guy that could provide you with some value. I know he's been real cheaply priced, and he's been hitting around that 4 or 5 spot in that order. But I'll move on here because I've actually, you know, I was worried about keeping time by myself here, but doing a pretty decent job of that. I'll move on to the Dan Herron Bronson Arroyo game at Chase Field. I don't even want to get into last night's debacle with Clayton Kershaw being so bad. Just absolutely mind-blowing how the best pitcher in the game can blow up like that, but that's why it's one of the greatest games, you know, because anything can happen on any given day. And today it's Bronson Arroyo and it's Dan Herron. 2 kind of older guys, you know, Herron isn't as old as Arroyo, but 2 kind of older guys, veteran pitchers, who kind of just try to go out there and pitch. And, you know, I think they're going to go out there and try to pitch. You know, I might be actually looking at the wrong pitcher. Is it not Arroyo? It might be Cole Mentor. Give me just a minute here. I'm going to go to the Diamondbacks website real quick just to check this out. Because, okay, yeah, Diamondbacks website's telling me Cole Mentor. Sorry about that. ESPN, I have their list pulled up, and it has Bronson Arroyo. If it's Cole Mentor, kind of the same thing goes anyway. Definitely not as old as Bronson Arroyo, but a guy that's going to probably go out there and try to pitch. He's not going to blow you away. I really like offense in this game. It was an explosion last night, 18 runs by the time I fell asleep in Arizona. For the Diamondbacks only, and the Dodgers had 7 at that point. There's a lot of run potential in this game, I like a guy like Gerardo Parra, Miguel Montero against Herron. On the other side of things, I love what Puig's doing right now. Hanram, Adrian Gonzalez, Andre Ethier should probably be in the lineup today against the righty. All those guys are in play, man. D. Gordon at the top of that lineup. Everybody here is in play. Absolutely everybody. You know, Paul Goldschmidt was awesome yesterday. All those guys are in play. I think this is a game you'll see be kind of heavily targeted, and rightfully so, because it should be an explosion of runs once again. Maybe not of yesterday's magnitude, because it's tough to duplicate like a 25 plus run performance. but I think you'll see plenty of runs there today. But let me move on here before I run out of time. I have to get to the Rockies and Padres game, which is going to be another game that's going to be super, super heavily targeted because it is Coors Field. And I'm trying to pull up the run line on this. The over-under is starting at 10, which is the highest of the day, but there are a lot of 9 and 9.5s. Once again, just about everybody in this lineup is kind of in play. It's going to be Don Roach and Juan Nicasio, two right-handed guys that kind of like meh to me. Seth Smith's the guy I used last night that I've been speaking highly of. He homered. He's just been exceptional, and he got to hit in that 3 spot yesterday, and guys were actually getting on base, and he was getting good pitches to hit, and he was doing damage, and I like him a lot again today. If you don't want to pay up for Tulowitzki at shortstop, I think Everett Cabrera is a nice play. I don't expect. Maybe, I guess we might see Chris Denorfi in that leadoff spot again for the Padres. Should he be there, that's another value guy that you could keep your eye on. He doesn't have the platoon advantage, but is a guy that you could maybe slide in there, and he's going to be in a good spot. Carlos Gonzalez, I love today. Absolutely love. One of my favorite outfielders against Don Roach. I watched him really stay back on the ball really well last night, hit a ball off the center field wall. And he's obviously one of the guys with the best upside in the game, in the best hitter's park in the game against Don Roach. I think Don Roach went to Arizona. That's weird. If you want me to continue with the college baseball trends, don't promise me. Don't hold me to that one. But anyway, I think there's a lot of value to be had here. All these guys are in play. The one downfall is we're not going to have this lineup for a while. So keep your eye on it. This might be one of those weird days where Tulowitzki gets the day off. This is a guy that they need to have healthy for the whole entire season, and if he's not healthy, then that really changes everything for this lineup. So he sometimes gets those days off. So today could be one of those days. It's really, really scary to pay up for a guy like Tulowitzki and have him not be in the lineup. So definitely be aware of what's kind of going on in that game. Outside of that, I love just about everybody in this game. Seth Smith is probably one of my favorite plays, especially for the price here. But there are other guys. I like Yasmani Grandal, should he get a start at the catcher spot. I like a guy like Chase Headley, maybe, if he could start putting it together here. But he's a switch hitter. He's going to have the platoon advantage, and it is at Coors Field, and this price isn't going to be there. This game, really has anybody that you can use, and just about everybody is in play. Let's move on to. I'm going to skip over that Pirates-Yankees game because I don't believe that is the makeup game from what I'm reading here. I don't believe that's going to be the game that is included on your slates. Should it be? It's Garrett Cole and Vidal Nuno. Because Yankee Stadium, kind of everybody's in play. I like a guy like McCutcheon a lot against Vidal Nuno. Neil Walker's much better average-wise from the right side of the plate. Some things to keep your eye on. Should that game be included? Otherwise, I'm not going to really talk a whole lot about it. But I do want to talk about this Sunday night baseball game, the Red Sox and Tigers. Everybody's always trying to get those late night sweats guys in their lineup just because. I don't know, like you feel when you get to the end, if you don't have anybody, that all these guys are going to pass you and you need to get somebody in there. Whereas I don't think Anibal Sanchez is really going to be available on too many sites. He might be, don't quote me on that. I'm not going to be using him against the Red Sox. It's just, it's kind of a tough game for me to put my finger on. Jake Peavy against Anibal Sanchez, against two pretty good lineups, two decent pitchers. I give Anibal kind of the nudge there, but first start back. Excuse me. It's a difficult game for me overall. I think a guy like David Ortiz, who's been awesome, is a guy that maybe you could keep your eye on. Mike Karp has been a guy that's been seeing some time in that Red Sox lineup, a guy that you could maybe find some value with. And on the Tiger side of things, Miguel Cabrera is absolutely insane. Hit another home run last night. Alex Avila was actually pretty decent last night. The Tigers kind of got on the roll last night against John Lackey. It's tough again for me to mention too many of the value guys in this game because we don't know the lineups. But the big guns should kind of be in play here. Victor Martinez has been swinging it well all year long. It's a guy to keep your eye on. And just about anybody here that you could find some value with might not be too bad, especially if you're looking for the late game sweat. But other than that, I'm really not going to be focusing too much on that game. Vegas has it as an 8.5 with team totals of 4 for each. So they are predicting some scoring. Outside of those top guys that you're going to have to pay for, which is going to be difficult to put those guys in your lineup, plus all the other guys from the Coors Field, the Texas, and Chase Field, and it's going to be tough to fit all those guys and then still pay up for King Felix and other things like that. So this is a game that's a game that's pretty difficult. That puts us through all the games, guys, and it's just about right on time. I'm going to check the chat here for a second and see if there's any questions. I see Nieves and Springer or Corcoran and Yelich. Honestly, I would lean to that first one with Nieves and Springer, just because of I like Nieves in the 2 spot and Springer in the 2 spot. And, although I love Yelich, he's not hitting in a hitter's park, and it's Carlos Corcoran in the 8 spot. So I would lean for the first side of that. And scrolling up a little bit more, Chavez, Teixeira, or Zimmerman, Dunn. Give me Zimmerman and Dunn. I like Zimmerman a little bit more than Chavez today, and I don't mind Adam Dunn at minimum age. Should he be in the lineup? Let me scroll up and see if this lineup's back. Adam Dunn is in the lineup, hitting 5th. Adam Eaton is back. That's a guy to definitely keep on your radar. A guy that, if he's available in player pools, you could slide in your lineup today. A left-handed guy at the top of that White Sox lineup in a game that should definitely have some scoring. Connor Gillespie hitting 3rd. Deaza hitting 8. No thanks for me then on that. But some guys there that you definitely want to have some exposure to. I like Adam Eaton a lot. I like Gillespie and Adam Dunn. That kind of 1-3-5 there might be a nice little mini stack and some GPPs. Other than that, though, guys, if you don't have any questions, if there's any other questions, throw them out now. If not, I know I had that little technical difficulty in the beginning. That was my fault. I didn't see the time on the Lou TV page. I needed to set it to 11, and it was at 11:30. So you guys can go back and check that first little intro there. I didn't really get into too much of the games by the time I figured it out. But should that be all? Let's see. I got one more question here. Zimmerman doesn't make me nervous in one-pitcher sites. No, not really. Not my favorite guy. Not my top pitcher on the day, but it's the Mets, dude. And I like Jordan Zimmerman as a pitcher quite a bit, and I'll let you know what Vegas is thinking. The Mets have a team total of 3, and the over-under in that game, honestly, is a 6.5, which is one of the lower 2 on the days. Which is a real low over-under. I like Zimmerman. He's not my favorite. I like Felix Hernandez, but if you don't have to pay as much for Jordan Zimmerman as you do for Felix Hernandez, and if you use Zimmerman, you can fit more of those guys from that Colorado game, et cetera, in your lineup. So that would be my take on Zimmerman. I do want to mention, I guess, real quick here before I sign off, check out Baller, our new sponsor. They're on the right side of the forum page. You guys click that link, work through there. One of the new sponsors here that we definitely want to support and keep in our thoughts and stuff. And the FanX Home Run Derby, I didn't get to it today, guys, because I'm a little long-winded here. But definitely, it's a free entry at a chance for $1 million. So I think it's stupid if you don't at least try to go win that $1 million. Take a look at that. And all our other sponsors kind of around there, guys. There are lots of great promotions. Sports Trade X is doing a $1 million thing as well. Get some money over there, run it up so you can have some cash for that $1 million thing. There's just a lot of baseball to be played today. Lineup's lock in about an hour. If you guys have any questions, you can reach out to me on Twitter at LHitch09. Otherwise, I'll be hanging around, playing Christian Yelich, having some fun, watching the Cubs. Other than that, guys, thanks for being here while I rode solo today, and I will catch you around somewhere in the future. All right, guys, take care.